We've all had bosses, but how many of us have had a true leader? It's a question that goes way beyond a title on a business card. It really gets to the heart of a fundamental choice every single one of us has to make in our careers. A choice between two very, very different paths.
And that choice, it really starts with a tough question. I want you to ask yourself right now and be honest. Would you follow you? Seriously, just take a second to think about it. Because your gut level answer to that question is really the foundation for everything we're about to dig into.
You see, that question puts you smack in the middle of what I call the leadership crossroads. Because being a leader isn't some destination you just arrive at one day. Not. It's a continuous series of choices you make every single day. And those choices, well, they make all the difference between a team that's thriving and innovative and one that's just getting by. When you get right down to it, every one of those choices, every decision boils down to this one thing. Are you trying to lead through influence or are you trying to lead through control? That is the fundamental divide. One path builds people up, creates trust. The other, it just creates fear and keeps people apart. So where does this all begin? I mean, how do you even start down one path or the other? Well, it all starts right here, in your head. It starts with your mindset. Before you even open your mouth or take a single action, your internal perspective is already setting the stage. So let's break down these two opposing mindsets. On one side, you've got the effective leader. They're focused on their people. Everything they do is built on empathy, trust, and when things go wrong, they take responsibility. Then you've got the other side, the ineffective leader. They lead from a place of fear, of insecurity. Their only focus is the bottom line, the outcome, and they are the first to point fingers when something goes sideways. Which one of those sounds a little too familiar? The secret weapon here, the thing that really separates these two, is emotional intelligence. But look, this isn't about being nice. It's about being in control of yourself. It's the ability to respond thoughtfully instead of just reacting on impulse. That pause, that self-control, is what lets you stay calm when everything's on fire. It's what helps you navigate tricky conflicts and build the kind of trust your team needs to feel safe enough to do their absolute best work. Okay, so that's the internal mindset. But how does it actually show up in the real world? Well, it all comes down to communication. This is where your leadership becomes real, where every word you say is either connecting your team or driving a wedge right between them. Just listen to these words for a second. Let's solve this together. It's so simple, right? But it's incredibly powerful. It's the language of teamwork, of inclusion. It says, we're in this as a team, and your brain, your perspective, it matters. And then there's this. Just do what I say. Wow. The contrast is just night and day, isn't it? This phrase, it instantly puts up a wall. It says, I'm the boss, you're the worker. It's dismissive, it's authoritarian, and it absolutely kills any chance of real collaboration. You know, the best leaders understand that communication is a two-way street. In fact, they probably listen more than they talk. And I mean active listening. That's not just you nodding your head while you wait for your turn to speak, planning your brilliant response. No. It means giving someone your undivided attention. It means actually trying to understand. And then, here's the magic trick, you reflect it back. So what I'm hearing you say is that simple step makes people feel genuinely heard and valued. It's a game changer. All right, so we've covered mindset and we've covered communication. Now let's talk about action. Because this is where the rubber really meets the road. This is where you can physically see the difference between a leader who empowers their people and one who just controls. And the perfect example of this is delegation. So many people in charge see it as just offloading the tasks they don't want to do. But that's missing the whole point. A real leader sees delegation as one of the most powerful tools they have to help their people grow, to build new skills, and to develop confidence. And doing it right, well, it's a pretty clear process. First, you have to match the right task to the right person, either playing to their strengths or helping them develop a new one. Then, and this is so crucial, you explain the why. Why does this matter? Give the work some purpose. Next, you have to make sure they have everything they need to succeed, the resources, the support. And finally, here's the hardest part for a lot of us, you gotta trust them. Follow up, sure, but don't hover. Don't micromanage. That's how you build a team that feels truly empowered. So let's look ahead for a second. Where is all this headed? Because the leadership skills that worked 10, even 5 years ago, they aren't necessarily what's going to cut it today. And they're definitely not what will be essential for tomorrow. When you look at the skills that companies are desperate for right now, a really clear picture emerges. You see things like adaptability, because change is the only constant. You see inclusivity, to make people feel safe enough to be themselves. There's emotional intelligence again, to manage team well-being in a stressful world. And yeah, of course, you gotta be tech savvy. The trend here is just undeniable. It's a massive shift away from that old command and control style and towards a new kind of leadership built on influence, connection, and innovation. And I really want you to take this to heart. You do not need a fancy title to be a leader. You can lead from any chair in the room. Every time you help out a colleague, every time you suggest a better way of doing something, every time you stay focused on finding a solution instead of just complaining about the problem, you are leading. That is leadership. So let's bring this all home, right back to you right now. Your very next meeting, that next email you're about to write, your next conversation with a coworker. Every single one of those moments is an opportunity. It's a choice. So the only question left is, how will you lead?